Hi and welcome to week 5 of my wildlife year. Hard to believe it's February already, but here we are. Before I got on with what I've been doing this week, I thought I'd highlight the work of the Wildlife Information Centre, or TWIC as it's known. The Wildlife Information Centre is the local environmental record centre for South East and Central Scotland, and I actually used to manage it up until a couple of years ago when I had to give up for health reasons. Been doing a lot of work with recorders for many years, but due to COVID it's been doing a lot more stuff online and running online talks and workshops, and it's got a lot coming up over the next couple of months. Just for example, it's got talks on introduction of Scotland's bats, Aberlady Bay LNR, the Water of Leith and the work of the Conservation Trust, introduction to Scotland's dragonflies, and a workshop on introduction to wildlife recording. Now, these are all free events, but you can choose to give a donation. I would say please give a donation if you can afford to. That work goes towards helping biological recording in the area. But another free event that you can make a donation for is the TWIC Spring Conference on Sunday the 14th of March. This is on Backyard Biodiversity. During lockdown we've taken a lot more interest in the wildlife we're getting in our gardens, and TWIC is highlighting that work. So their half-day conference on Sunday the 14th of March has speakers from Butterfly Conservation, BTO and the People's Trust for Endangered Species, covering, not surprisingly, butterflies, birds, but also People's Trust for Endangered Species is covering hedgehogs. So definitely worth going along to. Numbers will be limited, so better get in there, and you can actually also pre-book, pre-register a sort of 5-minute speed talk for an open mic session as well. If you go on Eventbrite and search for the Wildlife Information Centre, you'll find all the details there. So these are all free events, but if you can afford to, choose the ticket type where you can make a donation. The minimum donation is £1. So that's that over with. Let's get on and see what I've been up to this week. Right, so I'm all set up for the Big Garden Birdwatch. I've got my bird table. I've also got 3 trail cams set up, and also my action cam, and I'm going to put this camera that I'm actually recording on just now out, so just in case I miss anything, but also means that I've actually got something to put on my wildlife here week 5. Okay, so let's see what there is in the garden. Well, the final tally for the RSPB Big Garden Birdwatch was 4 house sparrows, 1 blackbird, 1 robin, 12 starlings and 1 dunnock. Typical that some of the birds that normally turn up, like collared dove, wood pigeon, jackdaw, rook, occasionally carrying crow, great tit, blue tit, coal tit, and I think I've had song thrush in the garden before. None of them turned up. Oh, and wren, occasionally that turns up in there too. So a bit of a shame none of them turned up. However, all data is really worthwhile sending in, so I'm glad I took part. Well, it's Wednesday evening and I hadn't had any mammals in the mammal traps in the kitchen this week, and we've got something now, so let's have a look and see what it is. Haven't had anything for a few days, as I said, and there hasn't even been any sign of poo, but there's a few droppings down here now, so whatever's made them, I assume, is what's in the mammal trap. Well, I'm not going outside because it's cold, wet, into the workshop to tip it out. I'm not going to have to go out in the cold and wet anyway to release it, so I thought I may as well just go outside once. Managed to get a... Yes, Dexter, you can't have it. Managed to get a wood mouse and just tipped it out into this bag, so I'll just transfer it into a container now to take away. Yes, it is a wood mouse, Dexter. Right, transferred it into the container. It's a male wood mouse, so I'm not bothering clip marking it because I really already know that they don't come back, so it's giving itself a wee clean, which is usually a sign that it's a wee bit stressed, so I won't be keeping it in there for any length of time. We'll just take it and release it now. Right, so I'm out on a very cold, wet, miserable night. I've got the mouse that was caught in the mammal trap. It's a male wood mouse, so just got to release it. Hopefully it'll go and find somewhere safe and dry. I'm releasing it somewhere where there's some reasonable cover for it to find somewhere nice and dry. Off you go. On your way. I do wonder sometimes if people see me wandering about with little sort of like humus tubs with mice in it and wonder what I'm doing. I wonder. Welcome to a new section of my wildlife here. This is something that I might do throughout the year. It depends how today goes, which is an interview session. So today I've invited Ash Whiffen along to talk for a wee while. Yeah, sure. Hi Ash. So do you want to just do a wee bit of an introduction to yourself?
So I'm Ashley, or Ash, and I'm a curator at National Museum of Scotland, and I'm an entomologist. So as through my work, I manage an insect collection, but insects flow throughout my spare time as well. So an entomologist never really stops looking at insects. So I entomologize for work, but also in my spare time, I volunteer and run a national recording scheme on carrion beetles, because carrion beetles are my absolute favourite. So I can often be found doing kind of gross little projects, putting out dead mice and trapping beetles. And yeah, hopefully we can chat more about carrion beetles today, Graeme.
Oh yes. Yeah. So yeah, because actually that's one of the reasons why I've got you on, because a couple of weeks ago on My Wildlife Year, I did a wee review of this book, which has never been that far. I have to, and I'm not sort of saying this just because you're here, that it's not been very far away from me, because it's such a lovely book and it's a lovely read as well. And although I'm not an entomologist, I come across carrion beetles. I've always come across carrion beetles because I do a lot of live trapping. I think because we put dog food in the traps, that maybe attracts the carrion beetles in. So carrion beetles quite often turn up in mammal traps. And I just got into moth trapping last year, and I've had at least one carrion beetle that asked you just to ID, confirm the ID for me. So I'm hoping that I'll get a few more of them this year, especially because I've just invested in
a inverter and battery, so I'm actually able to, rather than just run off the mains in my garden, I'm able to get, hopefully, obviously restrictions permitting, get out and about, and maybe sort of like get some more carrion beetles as well as some more moths. So do you want to tell us how this book came about?
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been a crazy whirlwind the last few weeks with it coming out. Been working on it for so long that now it's actually here. It's really strange and exciting. The book came about because through the entomological community, I met Steve Lane, and Steve Lane is a fantastic coleopterist specialising in beetles, and he runs another recording scheme. So his recording scheme focuses on the Hysteridae, which is the clown beetles, and he already had this plan to write an atlas. And we got chatting because he'd loaned specimens from the museum to extract records. And he said, Ash, you know, you do sylphids, I do hysterids. There's quite an overlap in their kind of habitats and niches. So, you know, would you be up for teaming up and doing this together? So it's kind of an unusual pairing in that, you know, taxonomically, these two groups are separate and they look quite different. But because if you're out recording carrion beetles, you might encounter clown beetles as well. It's quite a good pairing to kind of encourage people that are maybe recording sylphids to start looking at the hysterids as well. So that's how it happened. It's published by the Field Studies Council, and it was all thanks to BRC, so the Biological Records Centre. And it's been a real privilege. It's been a great opportunity to basically try and promote awareness of these cool groups, because they are brilliant, they're really fascinating. And hopefully the main aim is to increase the recording effort, to get more records coming in so that we can continue to learn more about these beetles and their distributions and their conservation status.
Yeah, no, it's excellent. I mean, I've tried sort of like, I'm actually, and I say this as an ex-manager of a local record centre, I'm a terrible recorder. I'm sort of like, you know, I'm always sort of saying to other people, record, and I'm absolutely awful at it myself. I'm trying to get a lot better. I've actually, because I've now given up full-time work, I'm actually got a lot more time, and I'm actually able to spend some time collating my records. But certainly my records are certainly going to be finding their way to you. Because I'll be putting in all my records at some point into the Wildlife Information Centre. So I'm really impressed with the book. I mean, it's a high standard of the sort of like, of not just of the writing, but also the photos in there and the, you know, in the plates are absolutely stunning. I mean, I think I mentioned in my review about the sort of like, you know, but those plates are just huge. I mean, not quite often in sort of like, you know, in books you're sort of like, you know, having to sort of get out magnifying glasses just to see, because I suppose it's down to the number of species there are. Because you're looking at a slightly more limited number of species, you've got more space to make things bigger, so like, you know, which has its benefits, because if you did it for other species, maybe the book could be a big tome, sort of like, because if you made them all that size. But it's really a lovely book, and I think I gushed over it a couple of weeks ago, and I better not start gushing again on here. But yes, so but well done. Yeah, well done for it. I mean, you're right. You're right to feel proud about it, because it is just a cracking book. One question I always have to look up the answer to, and you might know. Carrion beetles often have, well, in fact, not you might know, you will know. Sorry, carrion beetles also have mites on them, and people always ask me about mites and that, and I can never remember what they're called. I know they don't do any damage, and actually, if I remember right, they're just hitching a lift. Is that right?
Yeah, that's the general this. So these mites, I don't identify them to species level myself, but they are generally termed phoretic mites. So this is this behaviour, this forestry, where they are just hitching a lift on the beetle. Sometimes we refer to it as the beetle bus, because it's just transportation really. So these mites are also interested in carrion, and they will be predating on any fly eggs and larvae that are already on the carcass that the beetles have found. So they kind of have the same drive to go and find carrion, and because the mites are feeding on the kind of competition of the beetles, this is thought to be, you know, a beneficial thing. So the beetles potentially don't mind giving these mites a lift because it will help eradicate some of the competition. But that being said, there is some research that has found that these mites are capable of also feeding on the eggs of burying beetles too. So it's a little bit of a grey area, a little bit more research needed, but on the whole, they are believed to be beneficial. And so, yeah, if you encounter these beetles, the Necrophorus especially, at light traps around about, you will notice these really small mites, usually on the thorax and on the elytra of the beetle, but sometimes also on the underside. And the beetle can usually fly around and move quite easily with them, but you will sometimes come across some that are absolutely covered. And I think probably at some point it does start affecting the fitness of the beetles, but they're fine. Don't worry about them too much. The mites as well can sometimes make identification tricky, in that when you take your record shots, you maybe can't see like the bandings, the orange markings on the wing cases. But don't worry. So if you do encounter these beetles, obviously we'd love records for the recording scheme, and you can just take as many photos as possible from different angles. Even if it is really covered in mites, we will still be able to work out what it is. So don't worry too much.
Yeah, certainly, at least in one occasion I can remember thinking, how's anyone going to identify this beetle with this many mites on it? Because it was just a bit sort of like, you know, just a bit covered on it, and you just think, you can't see just about anything of the beetle. It's just mite. It's
yeah. Luckily, my colleague and I, so the recording scheme is run by me and Ash and Richard Wright, so a little team, and we've seen thousands and thousands of photos of these beetles out and about. So the recording scheme's generated like 30,000 records, and yeah, we could probably identify them in our sleep at this point. So yeah, don't worry if they're covered in mites. We've got a handle on it.
Well, I'll put up a link to the recording scheme, and also the Twitter handle for the recording scheme in this video.
Oh, that'd be great. Thank you.
So yeah. So do you think? I know I'm going to ask a crazy question. Are we finished with carrion beetles? Because I know that you could probably talk all day on carrion beetles, but
well, we couldn't not mention, Graeme, we could not mention why they're so special, right?
Yep.
Because, I mean, I'm very, very biased, but I have good reason to be. That's because these beetles are so important. I mean, you don't see loads of animal carcasses out and about, is because of this community of eaters. So these beetles are unity along with flies and, you know, other scavengers, but they are really providing us a really important service by recycling all that nutrients that's locked up in decaying bodies. So really important. And also they're fascinating because the burying beetles, the Necrophorus species, they have this amazing parental care. So both male and female will care for the young. And obviously we've detailed it a bit more in the book, but this is really unique amongst insects, because most insects you would find just, you know, especially the non-social ones, will lay an egg and kind of leave, let the young defend and fend out. Will pair the carcass and then directly feed them in a kind of nest setup, just like birds. So they are feeding on the rotting flesh and regurgitating to the kids, which is great.
Yeah, that's lovely. I also find them, and not just the sort of like the ecosystem service they provide, I also like the service they provide to me, because I have on occasion left dead mammals out, sort of quite sizable ones, so not ones that they could really bury. I actually have gotten, thanks to not just carrion beetles, but lots of other sort of like invertebrates as well, got some nice jawbones of a pine marten. So, you know, because which were, you know, cleaned up quite well. Unfortunately, the skull, it was a car impact. So the skull itself wasn't in a good condition, but I did manage to at least get some pine marten jawbones, which I was really pleased about. And I've got to thank the carrion beetles and also all the other invertebrates that did their job. I know that you've got other projects, and one in particular that I really want to talk about. It's literally, I mean, this was hot off the press a couple of weeks ago, but you've got another project that's literally hot off the press. Is it 2 days old?
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us about that one?
It was just a little thing. Honestly, Katie and I, so Katrina Dainton is one of my very good friends, also another entomologist. She works for Forest Research. We're a great support system for each other because we're both nature mad, mostly bug mad, but we in normal times would be going out on little adventures out of Edinburgh, going on good hikes and recording and observing nature. And we both find it really helps our mental well-being, just generally makes us happy. So obviously at the moment we're not able to meet up in the same way, go further than our little 5-mile radius and things. So we've been struggling a bit, both missing families, things like that, and just feeling a bit flat. So she said the other day, why don't we do a challenge? Why don't we do something to distract ourselves, give ourselves a little boost, something nature themed? And she straight away listed 4 or 5 different themes, and then asked me to come up with a couple more, so that we would set each other a challenge each day, whether it was to observe something on our local walk, whether it's to do some reading around that subject, or to do something artistic. So that's it really. And we've called it the February Nature Challenge, and we're going to do it every day throughout February. It kind of became a bigger thing in that we told everybody else we were doing it, and thought if it helps others, then get involved. So we have encouraged others, and it's been really lovely that other people have been joining us.
Yeah,
been some great photos. And
I was out yesterday taking photos of lichen, because yesterday was lichen day. I'm trying to think, it's Friday, is it insect day?
It is. It's insects on Friday.
Yeah, so I'm going to have to go out and get some insects. And of course now because I've got 2 Instagram accounts, my own personal one and my wildlife year one, I'm having to make sure that I get two quite, well, not quite different, but 2 different photos. Although for lichens, it was so easy.
It definitely made me notice things right on my doorstep. So I'm really lucky that I live right opposite a park. And so I just went out and looked at the tree trunks nearby, and I was amazed at the diversity and the colour and structures of these beautiful lichens. So yeah, hopefully it's given some other people something fun to do as well.
Yeah, well, and I checked out the hashtag, which I'll pop up in the screen just now so that folk know it. And I just checked out yesterday, and there was quite a fair number. And also, the other thing I've actually also got to thank you for is I've followed a few more people because of it. Because I looked and thought, oh, and then I looked at the rest of their feed and thought, oh, this is a really interesting person. I'm going to be following them. So it's actually a lot more than just giving some people to do. You're also actually, well, from my point of view, helping make connections between people that actually also have a passion for wildlife, which is really great. It's been really nice talking to you, and it's just nice to see.
Yeah, you too, Graeme.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to see. I know that obviously, my family, I adore them, but they don't really get the wildlife sort of stuff. So they just say that, and it's just nice to actually be able to chat and not be messaging. I mean, messaging's fine, sort of typing stuff now, but it's really nice to actually be chatting. That. So yes. So
absolutely. We look forward to the days when we can do it again in person.
Yes, I mean, I'm
field meetings and go on back walks. Yeah.
I would love to actually later in the year. I'm hoping restrictions will allow you'll be lifted by that point. Maybe actually get you on again in person with us actually being a couple of meters apart rather than Not like opposite ends of a sort of like of a webcam. Anyway, take care, Ash, and get you know, if you'll be in touch with things, and if you ever want to have a chat again, you know, just sort of like about stuff, feel free. That it's that. Okay, take care.
Yeah.
And
that would be cool.
Have a good day.
Yeah,
Well, probably see each other later on Nick's live Instagram live.
Yeah.
Right? See you then in the sort of virtual way. Right. Take care. Bye bye.
Yeah, in the virtual. Have a good weekend.
Right, you too. Bye bye.
If you're wondering who Nick, Ash and I were just talking about, it was Nick Baker, broadcaster, author and naturalist, who during the week, most Monday to Fridays, unless he's too busy doing something else, at 5 o'clock at the moment, he's going live on Instagram. So if you follow Nick_Bug_Baker, you'll get notifications of when he goes live, and you can just come along. Basically, Nick chats, people message him with comments, questions, and we just have a bit of a laugh and find out new things. Nick normally has a daily book recommendation, and also a mystery object. Sometimes it's Nick that supplies that, sometimes it's someone who is online at that time, and Nick also occasionally has people come on as guests. So if you haven't already discovered Nick Baker on Instagram, now is a good time to do it. I'm back in the coal shed where I was a few weeks ago. I'm trying to get a photo of one of the hibernating small tortoise shells for the February challenge that Ash Whiffen and Katie Dainton have set up. I was struggling a bit because they're all quite high up, but I found one that I think I can get in close enough for a photo. The others are quite high up here, but there is one just here that I can just about stretch to and reach to for a photo. So hopefully. For those of you that know your butterflies, you may have already noticed this is not a small tortoise shell, as I said in the previous video. This is actually a peacock butterfly. I never even noticed when I took the photo that it was a peacock. I just assumed it was a small tortoise shell because I'd already found some small tortoise shell hibernating in the coal bunker, and it's actually a good example of always making sure you look at anything you find. You don't just assume that because you found one that they're all the same. Well, that's week 5 of my wildlife year over and done with. It's a bit different this week. I wasn't out and about quite as much because I've been struggling a wee bit with a cold, and I wasn't really feeling in the mood for going out and about in the cold weather. But I think it was really good to speak to Ash and find out a bit more about carrying beetles and also her February Nature Challenge. So I'm just finishing with just a reminder of the hashtag Feb Nature Challenge, and also details of what the different categories are for each day. Doesn't matter if you do one each day or not, or if you just dip in and not out, but if you search on Instagram for hashtag Feb Nature Challenge, you'll see everyone else's contributions as well, and maybe find one or two interesting folk to follow too. And as always, you can contact me through direct messages on social media, or making comments in any posts, or comments on the YouTube channel. Always happy to answer questions or take on suggestions for what you might want me to cover, or to have any feedback on what I've already done. See you all next week for my wildlife year, week 6.